Good morning. It's morning where I'm at anyway. It's been a lovely morning. I've been taking lovely walks out in the woods and so forth. And that brings me to the topic of scouting out and prepping your stealth camp area. Now, stealth camping is an illicit lifestyle, and very few people are going to be on your side. So it is up to us to remain hidden and to accept the responsibilities that come with going to and from and keeping the place clean and prepped up and stocked up. And I mean, if this is going to be your lifestyle, you don't want to make it harder than necessary, and you also want to avoid detection. You want to be able to come and go, not just in the daytime, but also at night. And what is that's the topic of where I'm at with it with this video. And also, there's always a chance that you could come back to your stealth camp and it can be vandalized or something. It could be missing, just gone, vanished. I'm not, it's never, I hope it never happens to any of you, and I hope it never happens to me. So we have to keep our place clean. We got to be sharp about that. We've got to be able to scout out the area to know, like, what in the area could we use as far as like disposing of our rubbish, and perhaps even dumpsters that we could use to get cardboard from, that sort of stuff. But also, if you live in the woods, kind of in the deep of the woods, like a mile or more out of town, like I am doing, you can't just always go, if you're going to leave your stealth camp up and get to it at night without flashlights and stuff. You got to be able to scout that area out, and you got to remember like landmarks that you could see at night. You're gonna have to remember curves and corners, or how the trail shifts to the left or shifts to the right. What kind of fallen limbs and stuff might be in the area, and you could use those little feel things out at night as landmarks. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do right now. I previously, even 2 years ago when I was here, I scouted this area out, and I made it to where you could actually, where I, you know, am used to walking it, and I'll show you what I do. I prepare it ahead of time for nighttime walking. One, I clear everything out of the pathway I'm going to start walking. Then I lay out these branches alongside, and I can actually see them a little bit at night. Okay, now that's a root. Can't do anything about that. There's another branch. And this part of the trail is pretty easy. This here I might use and say, well, let me get this a little closer. This will keep me more on the straight and narrow. So you see, this is the path. I want to might clean this up a little bit. Get that out of my way, because I don't want to jam into that. At nighttime, it's a totally different deal. Now, that there is a branch. At nighttime, I could see that pretty clear. And then I just going to remember there's a fallen tree here. And instead of going, oh, am I off the trail? I'm just going to remember that that's there. And right on the other side, I got another branch laid here. Over here, I started putting branches, and the trail is curved up. You see? Now I'm a half a mile, maybe a little less than a half a mile, from my actual stealth campsite, which is really hidden in the woods good. But the whole way, I got it all set up like this. Now there's my little day pack. That's another thing. When you have a stealth camp, take all your important stuff into town with you. Like that's all my phone equipment, and that's stuff that I definitely wouldn't want to leave at the camp. The stuff that I have at camp, I certainly wouldn't want to lose it, but I can afford to lose it. That's stuff that I can't really afford to do without. So I take that with me, and I carry a small book bag, and I kind of bungee cord it to the big backpack when I do my major hiking, when I'm hiking with the big backpack on. Okay, so as we can see, I've got this all mapped out. So if I'm walking at night, I can catch a glimpse, even in the dark, where I'm at. Now, I've also gotten really familiar with it. Okay, now there is a little apartment complex over there, and they have a dumpster. So that's where I go and get my cardboard from for my bedroll. Like when I lay my bedroll down, I don't want to have condensation, and plus little root networks and stuff, you know, they can be uncomfortable to lay on. So I get a couple layers of cardboard. I get it from there. And then, often is the case, when I accumulate garbage from eating and so forth, I might drop my garbage off at that little apartment complex's dumpster. And then that keeps my land the stealth camping area clear and clean. That's my responsibility. We have an illicit lifestyle, those of us who are stealth camping, so it's our responsibility to remain unseen, unnoticed, and we have to understand that society has priority over us, and we should at least be courteous enough to keep our camp clean. And it'll help others who come along in the future, and it's good karma for us as well. Now, this brings me to another point that I want to bring up. When we um, when we have a stealth camp, and you like me, it's pretty well hidden, and I've left it for 7 months 2 years ago and nobody found it. But let's say I walk back to my stealth camp at night, and guess what? It is unfortunately been vandalized, or some litigious landowner found it and flipped the heck out, called the police, and took it all down or something. Well, this is what I have already prepared in case such an unfortunate event would occur. Now, mind you, I put this down 2 years ago in 2023, almost 2 years ago. See this? I prepared the area. Look at that. Now, voila, look at that. Another tarp. And now, I got that hidden away there. So, if worse came to worse, I at least have a tarp to keep the rain off of me, because when you're way out in the woods, in a small town, see, and that's what it looks like when it's hidden. In a small town, then you might not have any help or any place to run to. You might not have that plan B to run to, like a bridge or some kind of a tin shack that might be abandoned out in the woods. Those are always handy, and sometimes they are available, you know, when you're stealth camping out in the woods. But, you know, they're not always available. And in my case, if there was a sudden downpour, a real downpour, and I came back and there was, let's say my tent was vandalized, at least I can go back here. And what I need to do now to stock up is I need to get some more rope and put the rope with that, just in case any emergency. That's really important. What else? I have canned food that's stashed right now. I also have an emergency tent that surprisingly is still in its hiding spot. I have a hiding spot that's it's sort of like wedged in the V shape of a fallen tree, like a big pine tree that fell like 10 years ago or more. And it started like rotting into the ground, but the shape is still there, and there's like this Y shape. And in the Y shape, I put this cooler in between, and then I covered it over with like leaves and debris and this and that. Nobody's seen it so far. It's been there for 2 years, but maybe more actually, since 2022. In fact, it's been there for 3 years. But I have my tent, one of my old tents in there, and I checked on it a couple of days ago, and gosh, I can believe it's still there. I used it in 2023. That's the tent that I actually used in 2023. And if I needed it, it's there. And like I say, like I showed there, the tarp, which I put in before I left in early December of 2023, because it was deer season and I had to get out of here and I wanted to go down toward my storage unit, which is in DuBois, like 35 miles south of here, I left some stuff. I also got a bucket full that has, let's say, gloves, a scarf, like probably a couple pairs of socks, and light winter jacket, not like a real heavy winter jacket, but it's a mild winter jacket. I could grab that if I needed it. So I'm stocked up a little bit. I mean, I need to do a better job and make it a little bit better, but there's not a lot of help out here, and this is an illicit lifestyle, so really not many people anyways, are going to be on your side, when it comes to this. So we have to really use everything to our advantage, including setting up these guides, almost like little rails, because at nighttime it's really, you could get lost, even if you're really familiar with the area, because everything looks the same, and all you have to do is wander off the trail a tad bit, and you're bumping up against the trees and the bushes, and you don't know where you're going. And it could take you a while to get out of the mess, and you could spend 2 hours, trying to find your camp, and it's horrible. That has happened to me before, believe me. But now I always do this to my locations. This is probably close to a half a mile from where my tent's actually located. And then I got my tarp over there. I got a tent somewhere in this location. I use the dumpster over at this spot for my advantage, whether I need cardboard or whether I want to get rid of, let's say, garbage, because I'm like a mile away from town. A little less than a mile maybe, but close to a mile. So I can do that when I leave, and then when I you know leave for the season, then nobody knows I was at my spot. And I was responsible enough, and I do understand that society must take, they have, unfortunately, like, I don't think they're better than me per se, but I do understand that because society has built roads and infrastructure and people work their butt off to keep everything going, and I'm not really participating in that. I still, even if I think those people are generally shallow and kind of litigious and crappy, they still have priority over me because I'm living technically an illicit lifestyle. And without the society, without the roads and some electricity and a lot of things, that are provided by people who I feel are rather shallow, I wouldn't have a life. I probably wouldn't even be alive. So I do understand that society takes priority over me. And it's just a sacrifice I have to make in order to live this illicit lifestyle. So I'm realistic and I'm sensible. I really genuinely am. And it's more organized. There's a method to the madness, what looks or appears to be crazy or madness or something. There's more of a method than meets the eye. I've got one bucket is buried, one bucket is hidden somewhere, wedged underneath a bunch of concrete slabs and stuff. And they all got some extra survival gear. And then I got that tarp hidden, and then I got I got a cooler wedged in the tree, the Y of a fallen tree. It's covered over and kind of camouflaged and hidden, and that has you know, my old tent. It's pretty old. It probably smells very like mildewy or something like that. But anyways, I just wanted to kind of go through this. Last night I walked here at night, and I got almost to my area, and then I kind of lost track, and I had to use my cell phone to kind of guide the way. But then I went over, which I don't want to show that spot because it's too close to my tent. But I went and I did this kind of stuff in an area where last night I almost messed up. And I almost had to stop and go, oh man, do I have to backtrack and start all over again? And it was really dark. I didn't get back till almost 11. Well, anyways, I'm just saying hi, and this is just one of the things that I do, and this is maybe some tips in the future. Somebody might watch this video, or maybe I'll watch it myself in the future and say, wow, that was me all them years ago, and look at me now. Wow, I never would have thought I'd have this or that, and what a difference. And I'm glad I saved that as a sort of video journal or diary. But it's also just a small little tips can make a huge difference, and also perspective. Accepting the fact you live an illicit lifestyle. Not a lot of people are going to be on your side, and society really makes it possible for this. So even though society may be rather shallow and very litigious, and they kind of click up, and they're almost like kind of groomed by globalists, and used as cannon fodder in some ways. But we still just have to say, look, as uncomfortable and crappy as it kind of is, society unfortunately does have to take, has to have priority, even in our own minds, over our lifestyle. So it's our responsibility to remain hidden and keeping this thing going, without expecting too much help from people. But anyways, I just want to say I pray everybody has a wonderful and blessed summer, and maybe you can experiment yourself. Leave a couple of cans of food, a tarp, some rope, maybe a jug of water in an area around your town where you can practice stealth camping. I mean, what if you needed to do it? And in this day and age when apartments are becoming so pricey, everything's so pricey, I think if you're able bodied, you might, and you don't have a lot of money anyways, it looks like you're kind of at that risk of losing an apartment in 2 or 3 paychecks, away from a sort of stealth camping experience. Maybe it'd be good to stock up an area and just give it a shot, give it a practice run, and maybe, you could see what it's like, especially if you live in a more rural community, you know. So anyways, yeah, using the environment that you have, to your advantage. Sort of like, the dumpster up there comes in handy. I got some cardboard out of there, so I didn't have to cut make a giant thick bedding of ferns, because ferns do work really good. Like you can cut these ferns, and there's some pretty big ferns too, and you can take like a saw, like a folding garden saw, and cut those suckers and make a nice fluffy bedding out of them. But cardboard is really quick and it's easy, so it was really cool. And when I want to throw the cardboard away, instead of just leaving it there, having somebody say, "Oh, somebody was camping here. What a jerk!" Now I have to clean up the mess. I don't do that. I make sure that I use the environment that I have, and I will throw it back in the dumpster. It's really easy to kind of come and go from the woods to that dumpster, and nobody will be the wiser. So, anyways, I'm gonna head into town and I don't know, hang out and watch a movie or do some. I don't know. I got a little bit of change, a little bit of money saved up, so I can grab something a little breakfast or something like that. And I don't know what I'm gonna do today. All right. I'm still a little tired from all of this, and I'm trying to get on my feet, you know, up and running. And I'm trying to get to where I can get into a rhythm at the gym, a little bit of an exercise routine twice a week, that sort of thing. Real light stuff. I'm no athlete. I don't brag myself up at all that way. But I definitely got to get back into a routine and get a little more, you know, I guess a little bit more conditioning because I spent some time, for a while in an apartment and I lost some of this. But my instincts are coming back stronger than ever, and I think I think this summer has got great potential to be a real good one for me, and hopefully for you too. And I hope you enjoy watching, the Noah Roads Stealth Camping Adventure 2025. Nothing I'm suggesting is brilliant or anything. It's just, small little things, small little adjustments in your thinking or a perspective, and a little things that you do, like lining your trail back to your camp with these long branches. And you'd be surprised at how much these small little things can, in learning to use your environment. And like I say, perspective is a lot. It's an illicit lifestyle, so we have to kind of put ourselves into that position. And even if we don't really exactly like society, and it's rather shallow, it's definitely worth noting that you got to say, look, they have priority over us, because if it wasn't for society, I probably wouldn't have been here. What are we going to do? Live in caveman days? You know what I mean? Am I going to hunt squirrel or what? You know what I mean? At least I can get things and live a lifestyle like this. But I can also have dignity and keep it, sane and safe, and even though it's illicit, I can, accept that responsibility that comes with it. And so much of that is just perspective and harmony with the universe, and having a spirit, turning it into a sort of monastery, if you will. It's like a spirituality. It's like a walk between the two worlds in a way. If you look at it just with the world in the standpoint of the world and physicality, my gosh, that would just be devastating, because all you're seeing is yourself, and the world is just against you, and there's no spirituality to it. I couldn't really live that way. Anyways, I hope everyone's having a good summer, and I'm gonna get off of the video now because I want to keep these at least somewhat short. It's so easy to go 45 minutes or an hour. All right, thank you, and Noah Road over and